Companion planting can feel like such a complicated topic. If you look on Pinterest and search companion planting, you are going to see long, complicated charts with all these like, plant this with this, don't plant this one with that. Companion planting doesn't have to be so complicated. There are lots of benefits to companion planting. I'm going to mention a few of those in this video, and then I'm going to share some of the more tried and true tested variations. Here's how you can bring companion planting into your own garden without you needing a chart. You just take these concepts and you will naturally just start to companion plant yourself and reap the rewards. Companion planting at its core is really just planting different plants together in a way that help each other, some way or another. The most common way that we think about with companion planting is to attract beneficial insects to the garden. So that's the part I'm going to talk about most in this video because, I don't know, that's where I've seen the most benefit personally myself. But you can actually have companion planting to do lots of other things too. You can cut down on disease. You can not only attract the good, beneficial insects, birds, whatever, you can also prevent some of the bad bugs and bad critters from coming to your garden. People do that all the time. They put like essential oils, right, around things to deter bugs. So essential oils come from plants. So there's different things that you can do in your garden like that. You can also use companion planting to cut down on weeding, to improve underneath the soil, the roots of the plants all do different things. Like some plants pull up different minerals from the soil. Some pull up nitrogen, which is helpful if you plant it next to a plant that likes nitrogen. So there's lots of reasons why people like to use companion planting. I'm actually standing here beside this green wall, and I actually used to have a lot of plants all along the bottom here, but since I put in my lovely hot tub, it shaded everything. So now I was like, well, what am I going to do with this thing? So thankfully, there's one plant back here, hops, that actually just acts like a ground cover and a weed barrier. So I don't really have to weed anywhere where the hops is growing. So that's one way that I'm mixing hops with, this is a hardy kiwi. This is the male and I have females over there. I love the hops because I like to use the flowers. I put them in tea. I don't make beer, but maybe one day. And it's growing right in between this other vine and it's covering the weeds. So that's one way that I'm just companion planting without even really planting it. So there's lots of other ways that you can kind of just naturally companion plant. So I'm going to talk through what some of the examples that I've used and I've seen are. There are books that you can read if you want to look more into it. But again, my point of this video is really to show you how you can introduce companion planting, honestly, just by growing a wide variety of plants that are doing different things for your garden at any given point. So let me show you around. Here I am in my very hot greenhouse. So I have a bunch of cucumber growing here, but which I have to trellis. This isn't the full plan here. So right now they're kind of all growing all over the place, but I do have basil here. And one of the things that basil is useful for is actually to attract beneficial insects that will eat other insects. Gardener's evidence has shown that planting basil near a tomato can cut down on the hornworm. And the hornworm is not a bug you want on your tomato plant. So that's why oftentimes they say plant your basil near your tomatoes. I did that for many years. For me though, where I live, it doesn't always get hot enough to get a lot of basil. I always want a classic basil pesto and I don't always get enough of it. So this year I'm planting it in my greenhouse, even though I'm not growing, well, I actually am growing some tomatoes in here, but I have most of my tomatoes growing outside. But I would rather have all of the basil than try to plant my basil to benefit my tomatoes. I don't really have a huge hornworm problem around here. So sometimes it's okay to skip the advice if it doesn't suit you. Like if you don't like basil and goes well with tomatoes, then don't grow basil, right? Like there's lots of other ways that you can introduce benefits to your garden besides the exact like combination that you read on these charts. So I'm trying to show you, like, I know I've read enough. I have lots of evidence that's telling me I should plant basil near my tomatoes, but I'm still choosing to plant it here because the reason I want the basil is not to stop the pest. It's because I want the basil, right? So it's okay to ignore the advice if it doesn't suit you, but it is good to know about it so that if you're kind of debating, should you plant this near that? Should you grow this or grow that? Then you have some something to go off of. But basil and tomatoes is a classic. And if you like them both and you have space for both, then certainly worth trying. They also taste delicious together. The most commonly talked about area of companion planting is attracting pollinators, right? We hear a lot of farms, big ag, like monocropping farms, not have any bees. Well, that's like the opposite of companion planting, right? Like one crop is not companion planting. So they're not attracting any beneficial insects to their farms unless they're planting a wide variety of plants. Some plants like peas, I don't think peas need pollinators, but other plants like zucchini, yeah, they do. Cucumber, yeah. So you do have to have some insects in your garden. I plant a lot of flowers. I plant a lot of flowers that bloom at different times of the year. Number one, it's beautiful, right? So I'm naturally companion planting because I'm introducing flowers into my garden that are just adding aesthetics, right? They're just adding some beauty to my garden. But they're also double duty because they are attracting bees, butterflies, other insects that can pollinate my plants. So I think the key thing to remember when you're thinking about pollinators is, number one, have flowers that are in bloom throughout the season, not just at one point. So you want flowers early on in the season. Even like I see flowers on dandelions and clovers and things like that early in the spring in my lawn. And yeah, we don't want them necessarily all over my lawn, but I do leave a little bit early on in the season before I have some flowers in my actual garden that the bees can eat. So one of the last flowers in my season is always sunflowers, one of my absolute favorite flowers. And I love seeing the bees just all over that plant. So number one, it feeds the bees, the nectar, and then it feeds the birds, the seeds. So that plant is actually doing double duty. So growing a wide variety of flowers and with a wide variety of different kinds of shapes, because different kinds of animals and insects like to get in. Like I have comfrey over there, which I grow for like healing benefits. Comfrey is really good if you have a cut or something like that and you want to seal the wound. So I grow comfrey for that, but now there's these beautiful flowers and I see hummingbirds eating the flowers. So there's different reasons, right? I let that, I don't care. Let it go to flower. It's pretty. I don't need the leaves all season long. I got some leaves for this year. The rest of the year, I'll leave it to the animals, and it's not doing any harm. It's not causing any problems around here. In fact, it's helping more than it's hurting. So growing a wide variety of flowers will naturally introduce a lot of different animals and beneficial insects into your garden. All right, I'm sitting here next to two other very beneficial plants. This is chamomile, and this is milkweed. So milkweed, you probably heard, attracts butterflies. And chamomile, though, chamomile is said to reduce cabbage worms. And in my last video on pest management, I talked about my favorite way to reduce pests. And while lovely that chamomile would reduce cabbage worms, this wouldn't be my first line of defense. This would. I talk more about how I have easy, low-key, low-stress ways to manage pests. Companion planting is one of them, but even easier. But you know, you see what I'm doing here, right? I'm just introducing different kinds of plants. These milkweed just planted themselves. I don't know where they came from. They like to spread. So I'm just keeping them a little contained over here, but I figure why not? I mean, I have a big garden. I have the space for it. And how nice to be able to attract some butterflies into my garden. And the chamomile, I grow it because I love chamomile tea. I like chamomile. I put it into my lotion. So apparently you can spritz it into your hair. I'm doing that with my kids and see if it brightens up your hair in the summer. So the cool thing about so many of these plants that we talk about with companion planting is that the plant itself, chamomile, such a beautiful and useful plant anyway. So even if you don't care about the benefits that's coming with it, it's such a wonderful plant. And so many of the plants are like that. Here I'm sitting behind another double duty plant. So this is oregano. Very, very easy plant to grow. If you want more easy to grow perennials, I have a whole video on that. But I grow oregano because I love the herb. It's delicious. I put it into sauces. I will make a delicious oil and vinegar dip with it and just dip some bread in it anytime I feel sick, with garlic. And oregano also is, see how densely it is? It's right down to the ground. It's dense. And it's a wonderful place for little insects to hide and live, right? Like it's a habitat for a lot of plants. So, I'm not planning that when I'm planting oregano. I'm not thinking about, oh, insects can hide in my oregano. Great, that's why I'm going to plant this plant, right? I'm planting it because I love oregano. But the variety of different plants that I'm growing naturally introduces all of these benefits to these insects. And if you think about insects, people oftentimes think, oh, insects are bad, right? In my garden, I don't want them. Oh, a spider, oh, a bug, oh, an ant, oh, those things are not harmful. Most insects in a garden are not harmful. There's very, very small amount of bugs that actually are harmful in our garden. It's so detrimental, right? When we see the plant being harmed that we think about bugs being so bad, but they're not. You want to introduce more bugs to your garden, and this is one way to give them a nice little happy home, is to create these low, dense mat sort of plants for them to hide in. Here's another example of a plant that I didn't intentionally plant as a companion plant, but it actually provides many beneficial properties. So this is nasturtium. It's just a little baby. But nasturtium, oftentimes we think about it for aphids. Nasturtium is oftentimes used as a trap crop, which means that it's like sacrificed to deter the pests from destroying the other plants. And there's other plants like this too, besides nasturtium, but nasturtium is often commonly used for that purpose. But the thing about nasturtium is that it's also used to prevent damage to your zucchini plant. So rather than have the squash bugs destroy your plant, it's said to plant a nasturtium nearby and it will reduce that squash bug damage. So, worthwhile planting. If you want to plant nasturtium anyway, put it near your squash plant and see if it does any difference. The thing is though, is that if you're using a plant as a trap crop and you actually want that plant, then maybe plant more than one. Plant one in sort of its own section of the garden, and then plant one near the thing that you're trying to help. The other thing to think about too, if you're using a plant as a trap crop, is if you are attracting a lot of that insect, then you need to get rid of them somehow. You need to get rid of all those insects. So sometimes people will vacuum them up. I'm a very low stress gardener, so that does not sound interesting to me. I would rather attract that insect's natural predator. My favorite predator is a parasitic wasp. I don't see that many of them, but that's like the primo insect around here. Ladybugs obviously are great too, but anything you can do to attract more of those beneficial insects will then eat all of the ones that go over to your trap crop. So just think about that, because that's probably something people don't necessarily intuitively think, oh wait, I got all these bad bugs that I don't want. They're now over here. Well, now what? So just either accept it for what it is or think about a plan to get rid of those insects. So I'd say the key takeaway for this video is try to plant the widest variety of plants that you can. Plant things that bloom at lots of different times. Plant things in different shapes, different colors. Leave your herbs, if they're going to flower, leave them in flower for a little while. Collect what you want and then leave the rest to go to flower. Or cut it back and then oftentimes it'll go to flower again. This will help you to not have to think about these really complicated companion planting charts. Because if you're just naturally introducing a wide variety of plants into your garden, you likely are already companion planting and not even knowing it. If you're watching this video because you are looking for easy pest control strategies, I have another video that talks all about that, so check that out next. Otherwise, see you in the next one.